my friends. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you had a terrific weekend. It is Monday night, the 9th of March, 1998. And two friends are back with us tonight. Robert Blake, the actor who is famous for both motion pictures and television. He was Beretta on TV. And then Christopher Cuomo, who is a political activist, son of the former governor of New York, and now a new political analyst, I'm told, for the Fox news organization. So two old friends of our show back tonight, along with you on the toll-free line. And as I say, I hope that you had a terrific weekend. When we last spoke, during our last episode here on CBS, the babysitter next door was locked outside, if you recall, with the dog yapping on the outside and the baby on the inside in great fear in the neighborhood. The companion Ever Alert called the locksmith, who was not able to pick the lock because the owner of the house had had it pick-proofed. So we just drilled through the bolt. just shy of $100. You know, it was a great evening for the locksmith. And they got inside, and the baby was sound asleep. Slept right through the whole thing. So crisis solved, problem averted. This past week, the director of Late Night for CBS, Dorian Hanaway, who oversees this program for the CBS television network, went to the Aspen Comedy Festival. There, of course, to peruse the venues and look at the comedians available there to find out which would be the strongest possible guests to bring on the show. That was about a half an hour. Then the rest of the time, as Dorian said last week before she left, she asked me, she said, can you learn to ski in one lesson? I said, no, all you can learn during one lesson is how to fall down and scream. So she had a couple of lessons, and it all was going well until she hurt herself. And we all thought she had injured herself coming downhill. Wrong. She hurt herself going up the rope toe. The old ankle got caught in the rope, the shoe came off, and that was the end of the skiing. And back to the comedy for the delightful comedy guest that'll be coming on this program very, very soon now. In the weeks ahead, when we hit May sweeps. You know, a bunch of us were talking before the show, I think it was Friday night, on when we learned to truly respect gin. You know, there are 5 stages of gin, the last of which is complete invisibility. And I learned my I learned my respect in Philadelphia almost 30 years ago when I worked for Channel 3 back there. You know, I was always kind of a glib guy around the station. I would read the news and do the programs, but I was always telling jokes like I do here. You know, I crack a joke now and again. So whenever an executive was leaving Channel 3 in Philadelphia to go to another Westinghouse station, they would always have huge parties to wish them well in their new jobs. And they would always ask me to MC these parties and tell little stories about the executives, which I've delighted in doing both backstage and on stage ever since, as Dorian Hanaway has witnessed. And they would have these parties on a boat that sailed up and down the Delaware River at night, and some nights it was a little rocky out there, but we were all truly into Beefeater gin at that time. There was a restaurant on Walnut Street in Philadelphia called Arthur's, and you'd go in there and you'd get a bowl of gin. You know, and oftentimes, as invisibility took over, you realized you had no need for dinner, and you passed. So, at these parties, the gin flowed, and everybody had a great time. And then I had to be at the studio at 9 o'clock in the morning to do an early talk show. So one night we had a farewell party for some executive who was going on to San Francisco, and you know, we all had our full complement of gin martinis. And the next morning, I awakened at 7:30 with a true gin hangover. You know, only 2 words can be used to describe a gin hangover, the words being dry and heave, if you get my idea. The golden liver bile. And that particular morning, I had an exercise guru on the show in Philadelphia, and I had to do push-ups between the dry and the heave. And since that day, I've passed the bottle of gin in my little bar at home every night, and I say, "Good evening, Commander." And he says, "Coming aboard tonight, sir?" And I say, "Not tonight, Commander." Ooh, it's delicious, but bad, bad, bad invisibility. Robert Blake is with us tonight, who I suspect has experienced invisibility at some moments in his life, and Christopher Cuomo, and you on the toll-free line. I'm Tom, you're watching CBS, and thanks for catching our pictures as we fly him through the air. Robert Blake has been an actor since the 1930s, and his body of work includes awesome performances in such pictures as Electra Glide in Blue and in cold blood. It is always a pleasure and an adventure to welcome Mr. Blake to our program. Robert, thanks for joining us here at CBS.
Thank you very much for having me.
My great pleasure, sir. You know, all the times that you've been here, we've discussed a wide variety of topics, you know, ranging from your escapades as a young boy to your adventures as a man, but we have never discussed your romantic life. Is there a story in the romance of Robert Blake? Please, God, there's a story in the romance of Robert Blake.
As you can see, I'm ready to be buried.
Well, you've certainly come to the right place.
I got a jacket a few years ago, so in case I croaked, they'd have something to put me in.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of days ago, you asked me to do the show, and I graciously accepted. And since then, I got my heart broke for the first time in my whole life. And I wasn't going to do the show because of how you bring that to the... But I don't know, I guess maybe there's a lot of people out there that have gone through this. I never was in love in my whole life. I never asked anybody to marry me. And I never got my heart broke. And, man, it just... Anyway, let me just thumbnail this for you so you can catch up, because maybe it'll affect some human being out there someplace. 10, 12 years ago, I was recently divorced. I was like $1.5 million in debt. Not to the bank. I was in debt to those guys. You know, they don't send you bills. They take care of business. I was a practicing drug addict, an alcoholic. I was completely obsessed and hooked on that psychiatrist that I'd been with for 30 years. I was obsessed with my ex-wife, that she was going to come back. We would live happily ever after. I was an overeater who was, you know, eating a half a turkey a day and barfing and all that craziness. And there I was in the middle of my madness, living in a little ratty house in the valley with 2 teenage kids that were crazy from a crazy life. I was giving my son drugs. That's how crazy I was. And one night I went to a friend's acting class, Daryl Hickman, and there sitting on the steps was this beautiful creature that was just exquisite, that glowed, and I fell instantly in love with her. I didn't know it till years later, but she wrapped herself around my heart and stayed by me. I never told her anything about who I was or what I was going through or all that madness. The first thing I had to do was get out of debt. I went back to work, and I did the series Helltown, and she was with me all the way, holding my hand, being there for me.
Well, and not to interrupt, but she must have known who you were. She
knew sure.
Okay.
But I kept my whole life away from her. I was so desperately afraid of losing her.
You mean the drugs and the booze and the...
Everything, all of it. She didn't know nothing about anything except that I was there. She used to put her hand on my heart, and my whole body would relax, and I'd feel like the pain was gone for a while. Anyway, I staggered through Helltown with drugs and alcohol and insanity, coming home to a totally insane household. I got out of debt. I got on the 12-step program. I admitted all of my madness for the first time, and I stopped the drugs and the alcohol, and all of it started coming up. Everything that I'd repressed all of my life, all of the sexual abuse, the physical abuse,
which we've gone through here, you know, at the hands of your father.
Stuff.
And how was she to you? She was loving to you, you say?
She was an island in that black sea of, my God, that sub-zero fire that I was living in. And I'd be with her, and we would make exquisite love. I've never been very good at having sex. It's like, you know, it's like 2 people grunting and sweating like a couple of goats doing gymnastics. But I was in love with her, and it was very gentle. It was very tender. It was like nothing I'd ever known in my life. She gave me total, unconditional love.
So Robert Blake was in love, right?
I didn't know it. I didn't know it. She was in love with me, and I was just this animal, this thing that nobody could approach. Anyway, the steps worked. I got out of all that. Then I had to leave that psychiatrist that I was seeing 5 days a week that had total control over my life. And boy, that's a story in itself. I got my hands around his throat. I almost killed him. And she was with me through all of that. I got rid of him. I finally got in the right kind of therapy, and I found little Mickey Gubitosi inside me.
Mickey Gubitosi.
The little magic
Talk
man.
about little Mickey.
He came out,
Yeah.
and he started running my life. I was in the right kind of therapy. Robin Ribicoff, God bless her, she saved my life. 3 or 4 hours at a time, on the floor, screaming, curled up in a ball with all that stuff coming up. What a human being she was. Colette was there with me through all of that. She got into therapy. She found her little girl that I used to call
Colette
Tootsie
was
Girl.
the loved one, huh?
She was my lover.
Yeah.
She was the person that I'm talking about.
Okay.
Colette was there all the time. We were, you know, this was years have gone by now, and I was getting stronger, and I was getting ready to go back to work. I was going to go to Canada and do the John List story and all that stuff. And Colette was with me, but I got scared, and I pulled away from her again. And she went to New York. But we still remained lovers. She came out, we would, you know, it was the same beautiful thing. But I still could not, I don't know why, but it was about 2 years ago that she said, Robert, I can't do this anymore. She started seeing other men, I started seeing other women. She went to New York, to England to do Shakespeare. She came back, we talked on the phone. She said, I'm still in love with you. Why don't you marry me? I want to have a baby, I want to have a home, I want to do what other people do. And I couldn't answer her. And I knew that I still had one horrendous addiction to go through, and that was my ex-wife. Matter of fact, it happened here on the show that I started talking to her on camera, and I had to go face that fantasy, because all those years with darling, sweet Colette saving my life, literally saving my life.
The
so that
ex-wife is still
I
in-
didn't put a 51 mag in my head and blow my brains out. I still dreamed that that was going to materialize. And I had to go back, because I know you never leave anything that you run away from. It always goes with you. You have to be able to walk away from it with a choice. And I went back, and we became friends. And I knew that I was going to marry Colette. And about a year ago, I just went crazy. I said, I'm going to get married. We're going to have kids. I said, she can't live in a house like this. I took a sledgehammer. As God is my judge.
When you say a house like this, was your house just
My house was like an animal lived in it. All these little cubby holes that I lived in, like no one could come in my house. There was junk old buffalo robes, madness of all kinds that it was like living in some sort of miner's cabin or something.
Yeah.
With a shower the size of a toilet I took a sledgehammer and I started breaking walls down. I turned 4 rooms into one big, beautiful bedroom, a glorious bedroom. I broke the ceiling out and put skylights
all
into
for
the
the fair
whole house.
Colette, huh?
I was going to get married.
Yeah.
I made a room for a baby. I built a bathroom for Colette. She used to love it when we went to hotels and motels because there was a nice big shower and a deep bathtub. I built all this stuff. And Mickey woke up one morning and said, we got to start sending her presents. We got to send presents to little Tootsie Colette. We got to do all this stuff. I started sending her all these beautiful gifts. I wrote poetry. It was the most creative period that I've ever been through in my life.
Okay, now let me have you take a pause there. You're at the end of this creative period. You made
Watch
a
this.
wonderful bedroom, you know. You had a beautiful bathroom, the presents to little Colette. Okay, back with Robert Blake and more of his incredible story after these messages.
In a minute, we'll do it.
You're now with Robert Blake, and I don't know if you're in a great mood tonight or if you're really in a sad mood. I've never quite seen you this way before.
I have never been this way in my life. This is the first time in my life that my heart is my own, that I'm not hooked on that shrink or, you know, I'm friends with Sandra. I'm not obsessed with anything.
Sandra being the ex-wife. And where is the affair with the fair Colette? That's finito?
Like I said, I was going to get married.
Right.
I sent her all the presents.
Redid the
I sent her
house, the
love letters.
bathroom.
I never wrote love letters in my life. It was the most creative I've ever been. And the packages started coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And I called her. And I told her that I was in love with her, that I wanted to marry her. that I was sorry, that I was wrong about everything. To this day, to this moment, she has never known anything about what I've told you. Through all those years, I never told her anything, which was my disease.
But she never watches television?
Alcoholism does not like love. Addictions don't like love. She watches television. I never talked about what was going on with my own personal madness with her. Anyway, she said, it's too late, Robert. You know, I said, and I don't know what's going on right now. I don't know. I know that I'm in love with you. I know that I want to marry you. I can't make up for the years that I hurt you. I can't do that. But I can make the rest of your life exquisite. Every moment, every second of it, till long after I'm dead, I'll be making you happy. Whatever you want. If you want the moon, I'll go and swallow it and give it back to you in a kiss. I want to spend my life making you happy. If it doesn't work, what'll I do? Bogey said, style you can buy in a store or get out of a bottle, but class comes from your heart. And if it doesn't work, I'll walk out with class and thank her for saving my life, literally saving my life.
So Colette is apart from you now?
She's in New York, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you just made a hell of a pitch here, you understand? I mean, you...
Of course. That's the way I want to live the rest of my life, on the natch. They say the journey from your head to your heart is a very short distance, but it's the longest journey you'll ever take in your life. And I'm finally connected to little Mickey, my soul and my heart.
Good. Now that we've said that, can we talk about some other parts of your life that I...
Whatever is in your heart.
Well, thank you very much. And Colette, I hope you were paying attention, because obviously this man loves you dearly. Now, you said that acting always came easy to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that it was no stretch for you. It was so natural. It was like breathing out and breathing in almost for you to be able to be an actor.
People used to say, how do you do that? My God, how do you do that? How did you do In Cold Blood? How can you do this thing? And I wanted to say to them, how can I not do it?
Right.
How can I live like you? How can I be a person? Because I never was. It was okay to be real in front of the camera because there was no consequences. Nobody could hurt you in front of the camera. And you could fall in love. You could do anything you wanted in front of the box. I was 5 years old and I said I can do that stuff. But all of my own feelings throughout my whole life, I have been an alcoholic since I was 2 years old.
Yeah, life was tough for you. Very tough.
I would be on the set and I would wait for somebody to put a coffee cup down when I was 5 years old, and I'd run and drink the coffee. I would drink alcohol out of people's glasses wherever they were, just to not feel. I couldn't stand all those feelings of all that. If I could tell anybody out there in the world, don't do what I did. Don't use anything at all to get away from your feelings, because that's the only thing that's real. Face the pain. What do they say? The truth hurts, but the lies will kill you.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's true. I lied to Colette for 12 years. I let her see who? I let her see the Beretta of me.
Okay.
The guy who could handle anything.
And
Like the whole world.
The ball is in Colette's court. And
No, I'm not talking about
And
her.
I hope it turns out well for you.
For a lot of people in the world, they do like I do. They present a character to the world. They present a character to their husband or their wife or their kids or their job. And their heart is never connected with who they are or where they are.
We have talked in the past about you learned to steal as a kid. And you continued that as an adult, as we've talked before. Did you ever have any encounters with the police where you were caught stealing?
By the time I was a teenager, my father taught me to steal when I was 2.
Yeah, you said that.
I didn't know it was wrong. By the time I was a teenager, I was a professional gangster. I robbed people's houses. I robbed liquor stores. I did all those kind of things. But in those days, I was very lucky because cops were allowed to be human beings. They weren't, living in the terror that they live in now of doing something wrong and getting sued and all that craziness. And it wasn't such a horrible place then. I remember once, I had a friend named Whitey, big guy. And we used to rob phone booths. He had 2 chisels. And
to get the money out of the coin box.
He would
pop the box. Yeah.
And I would sit in the car. And one night we got nailed. And Whitey started running down in Venice. He ran all the way out to the end of the Venice Pier and jumped off in the ocean and got away with the cop chasing him. And I got nailed in the car. And the cop was standing next to me in the car, and I was trying to, you know, be a wise guy. I ain't doing nothing. I don't know what. I didn't see that guy. I don't... And he said, son, don't you understand? Look down here. And the gun was right there. He said, now get out of the car. And this decent human being, he was kind of an old guy. He had a couple of hash marks on him.
Yeah.
He sat me down at the curb, and he must have talked to me for an hour. I was crawling. You know how liquor stores have that chain link fence in the back before you
I'm
go
not aware of that. No,
yeah,
I'm
it's where they
kidding.
keep their
I know what you
empty
mean.
bottles and all that junk. And we had robbed a liquor store, and Egan was already in the car with the goods, and I was coming out the chain link fence where we had cut the hole with the last case of booze, and there was the cop. And I said, Egan, where are you? He said, son, Egan ain't here.
Egan's gone. Yeah.
I got nailed for that one. But at the time, I was working. And the studio stepped in and this and that. Eventually, I went on probation, and I got out of that. I still, to this day, will unconsciously walk out of a store, and there's a fountain pen, or it was about 6 months ago, I wound up with a little pair of dice with a thing that you hang in the car. I said, what the hell? Because it's unconscious.
Yeah, just reaching.
The way you're born and raised is what you have to recover from the rest of your life.
Let me take another break here. We'll see the, I hope, the lighter side of Robert Blake. you on the toll-free after this short break. With Robert Blake, here is Sal on the toll-free in Syracuse. Hi, Sal. You're on the air here at CBS. Hello.
Hi, how are you, Tom?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you tonight?
I'm fine. I'd like to commend you for having people such as Robert Blake
It's our
on the
pleasure.
air with you regularly.
Our pleasure.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
I recently saw you in The Lost Highway, and I was wondering why you haven't or aren't doing more stuff in Hollywood, more movies.
Because like I told you, I spent my whole life in front of the box. And my desire is to live on the natch and be a human being. I never smelled the flowers. I don't know what the hell life is. I never went on a date. When I was in high school, I used to climb up to the 3rd floor in the school, open the window, and sit outside on the ledge like a monkey and watch kids walking around holding hands and doing their thing. I never thought I was a part of any of that. I never been to a prom. I never did nothing. I don't want him to stick me in a box saying he was a good actor. I'd like him to say he was a human being.
So you must turn down a lot of stuff. You must
All
say
the
no to a
time.
lot of people.
Yeah. Well, in Hollywood, even when you're a half-assed celebrity, somebody wants to, you know, doll up the show with something. So there's always scripts around.
Yeah.
If I do go back to work, it's not going to be that.
Gotcha.
And I'm going to do my own
Could you
films.
explain to us tonight the true meaning of Lost Highway?
I told David Lynch, I said, David, you're going to have the most cooperative actor you've ever had in your life, because I don't understand one word. You tell me where to stand, what to say, and how to say it, and you're going to be happy.
Could you make head or tail of that picture, Sal?
No, well, yes, I could, but, you know, I called several friends of mine asking, like,
Right.
what did you get out of this?
Right, what'd they say?
Well, they said the same thing as me. It's like, well, what did you get out of this? It raised a lot of topic of discussion, and where have you been, Robert Blake?
You know,
I mean, I've been watching you for years.
With all due respect, you have to understand that there is, you know, there's art. And when you look at a Hieronymus Bosch painting or things like that, you may not understand them, but you feel something. And David is really a painter. That's where he started in his life. And so his work is on that level. And it's like the Ingmar Bergman or some of those Pater Panchali, those kind of artists.
Filmmakers, right.
Where you absorb it. You don't say, oh, now what's going to happen? Oh, that's the first act. What's the second act? You don't follow the story. You follow the feeling.
It's an experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there you go. Sal, I'm glad you called. Thanks for joining us tonight.
I know you didn't want to fall into this certain characteristic kind of role in Hollywood. We miss you. We miss you, and I hope you do more movies.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I mean it.
Okay.
Take care. Love you. Thanks, Tom.
Okay, Sal.
Good night.
Be well. Thank you, sir. We've talked a little bit about your Army career, but we've never talked about the time. I read this afternoon that at one point you went bonkers and they had to put you away for a while. They had to calm you down for a
I was
while.
in the infantry. In the Army, it's just like any place else. I could no longer be an actor. I had to be a person. And I didn't know how to be a person. And it was hard to get drugs and stuff from the Army in Anchorage, Alaska. But I did. Anyway, I wound up with a bayonet standing in the corner with people coming at me. You know, it was inspection day up on the second floor in the middle of winter. And the lieutenant said, clean up that footlocker, zama, zama, zama. And I said, watch this. And I took the footlocker, I picked it up, and I crashed it through the window. And it fell 2 stories down into the snow, and it looked like an elephant had peed, like disappeared down. And I started laughing like a madman. And I picked up the bayonet, and I was suicidal. So they put me in a nut house. I figured out in the nut house, they keep you in a wheelchair.
Really?
And I figured out that if you act sane, you get to wheel the other people around. So I began acting sane. It became a performance. I got out, and I got in special services where I could make films and entertain, and I was all right for the rest of my stint in the Army. Because I had a place to
So then
be.
you received an honorable discharge when you...
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was all cool.
Okay. And the last time that you were here, you talked about having a website for collectibles. Remember you showed me a watch
Yes.
that you had...
Well, a thing called Colette kind of came in
Colette,
there.
yeah.
So I spent, like I said, the last year of my life getting ready to spend the rest of my life with her, and everything kind of went to the side.
Yeah.
Which
And
was cool.
Has she said to you, by the way, I don't want to see you again, or...
No, it wasn't like that. It was more like, it's too late. I got to get on with my life. I can't let you into my life again. It's been too long, too many times. And even then, I really didn't have the courage to tell her why all that stuff happened. So, I don't know.
So why don't you get on a little airplane and go to New York and find her and tell her yourself?
Because I don't think that would be classy. I don't ever want to be one of those people who interferes, you know, please listen to me, don't you understand kind of stuff. Right now, it's in the hands of God. If she is still in love with me, that'll emerge. Because I do believe that what's supposed to be...
Will be.
You know,
And
my job in life is to row the boat as hard as I can and let the boss steer. And if he steers me into Colette, God, it'll be the blessing of my life. If he doesn't, then I'm supposed to do whatever I'm supposed to do.
Keep rolling, kid, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you
It's always a
very
joy.
much.
Robert Blake is our friend and our guest, and I thank him for joining us. Back with Christopher Cuomo right after these messages.